Hello, everyone. It's Lisa Patterson with Daniel Ravenel, Sotheby's International Realty in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina. And I'm here with Jennifer Flanagin with Case Law. And today we're going to talk about new home construction and purchasing on a new home site. And a lot of people don't realize that when you go onto a new home site, you just have no representation at all. And I advise my clients, do not go on a new home construction site without taking an agent with you. The contracts are totally different. They offer lots of things saying they're saving you money, but really everything is just geared toward the builder, and you don't have any representation. They'll tell you to, use their closing attorney, use their lender, you save money, but you really don't. So Jennifer, let's talk a little bit about why it's so different and why they need representation.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. So that's the very first thing I think buyers need to understand is don't even go to a home site without an agent. And I know a lot of buyers on a Saturday, they'll get in their car and they'll drive around looking at homes. They obviously won't have their realtor with them. They'll just be, looking for themselves. They'll see a new neighborhood being put up. They'll see the sales office. They'll say, "Oh, let's just run in and talk to them." Really don't do it. It's a bad idea. Lisa's exactly right. Those are sales reps for the builder. They do not represent you in any capacity, and they're salesmen. They want to make the sale, and so a lot of times they'll say things that are not later enforced, just to get you kind of in the door. And two things really about that I think buyers need to understand. Number one. In real estate, we have this statute that governs our field called the statute of frauds. And that means that anything relating to the sale of real estate has to be in writing to be enforceable. And so these statements that sales reps make to buyers when they go into their little office are not enforceable. They are absolutely not enforceable. They are oral statements that will not be enforceable.
And not in those contracts. Another thing that I wanted to add, Jennifer, a lot of people do not realize, sometimes there's a brokerage perhaps that represents some of these home sites. Mm-hmm. And what people do not realize, the agents on those sites, I would say 99.9% of the time, as you said, they're working for the builder. They only sell on those sites. They're not allowed to sell off of those sites. So they are really geared toward, and they make a lesser commission or a fee per sale. So they're really geared to volume, just turn and burn on those sites.
Yeah, and again, these are salesmen. They want to make the sale, and they're going to say things that aren't going to be enforced later. And buyers need to remember that the second thing that I want to point out about walking into these sites without an agent is that the builder, first of all, sellers pay commission. So if the buyer has an agent, they're not going to be paying for that agent. The builder will pay the commission for that agent. And the builders already have a sales price for their lots. They have the price. They know what they have to sell these lots for to pay off their loans and to cover their costs and their overhead. They know what they have. It does not matter if the buyer has an agent or does not have an agent. The buyer's not going to save money on the sales price, regardless of whether they have an agent. Those base prices are set well before the buyer ever walks into that sales office. And so, of course, the builder doesn't want the buyer to have an agent because they want to save that money on their end. But the buyer, if they had an agent, they would have someone looking out for their interests because no one in that office does. And number two, they will not pay for it. The seller or the builder will pay for it. And so it's really important for buyers really from the outset to understand that they really shouldn't go into those offices without an agent because they're going to get heads are going to get filled with a lot of statements and a lot of promises that aren't going to be enforceable. And again, they're trying to rope them in. They're trying to get them in there. And then, a lot of times the buyers leave and they think to themselves, "Oh, well, I don't need an agent. I got this sales rep looking out for me." They are not. They are looking out for the builder, bottom line, every single time. And so buyers, when you work with a builder, for those reasons up front, you need to have an agent. Now, through the process, you need to have an agent because, as Lisa mentioned, those builder contracts are completely different than our normal residential sales contract. At least I know you've seen a bunch of those.
And I
And
know a
how
lot
different.
of people think that when they go on those sites, well, that contract's that contract, and that they'll basically tell them that's what the contract is. I've sold a lot on new home construction sites, and I have been able to ask for things and change things in those contracts and use, their own closing attorney, their own lender. And sometimes they offer, $500 discount if you use this or use that, or, $2,000 toward closing cost. I've literally explained to my clients sometime that might sound good, but in the end, without having your own representation all the way around, sometimes you can save money other ways. And if you use your own lender, you may be getting a better rate or a better deal. And especially using your own closing attorney to look out for things in that contract.
Yeah. And so what I like to do is I tell all of everybody I work with, all the agents I work with, and any buyers I can talk with, if you are working with a builder in new construction, before you even sign the contract, just send me a copy of it. I'll be happy to take a look at it and point out to you the terms, because they're oftentimes, many, many pages long. Our contract's 9 pages. Builder contracts are oftentimes, 4 times that, 5
Yeah.
times that. They're very long. Their font is about the size of, a gnat. I mean, they're so small, you need a math class to read it. And it's just
A
a lot
reason
of
for
stuff.
that.
That's right.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
That's right. And again, if you don't have your own agent, and you don't have your own closing attorney, no one's going to tell you this stuff. They're going to sit there and point out to you all the drawbacks of buying in their development. Of course not. Again, they're salespeople. And so you need your own agent who can recommend a closing attorney who can take a look at that contract and review it and point out things. And some of the things you may not care about, but some of the things you may care about. And again, as Lisa said, it depends on the builder and depends on the situation, but very often the agent, it's almost always the agent who talks to the agent on the other side, or talks to the sales rep, talks to the builder about negotiating some of the terms out of the contract, removing some of the terms out of the contract. And the agent is oftentimes successful with that. If you have an experienced agent like Lisa, who's done this before, and sometimes you're not, right? I mean, some builders,
Some stick to their guns. Usually you can negotiate some things. One of the a couple myths that people think on going to a new home construction site. Number one, they think, oh, it's a new construction. I don't need to get an inspection. I have discovered a lot of times some of the new home construction and some of the newer homes have more issues than pre-existing built homes. It is what it is. These builders, they sub everything out. And, I've actually seen structural issues with some homes, new home construction. And so that you need representation to walk through that. And then the other big one is people, oh, it's a new home construction. I don't need title insurance. Well, yes, you do. So you want to explain about that?
I do. So the first thing I want to touch on is your comment about the inspection. Super important. And I would say, builder contracts are going to be pro builder. Every single builder contract you read is going to be very heavily skewed to the builder. Most of the fees that typically would be seller costs are going to be pushed over to the buyer side. A lot of them specifically state that the buyer cannot have their own inspector come in and do an inspection. The settlement date is hardlined from the builder. They have oftentimes years from the proposed settlement date to actually close on it. I mean, there's lots of provisions in there that are very, very heavily skewed to the builder. So again, you want somebody to understand these provisions. And as to your point of the inspection, a lot of contracts say that buyers can't have their own inspection. They'll get somebody in there, they can do a final walkthrough, whatever. But that is, I've seen, very negotiable. I've seen, most of the time when an agent brings that up to the builder, they'll mark that out, and they'll allow a provision in there that allows the buyer to bring their own inspector in there. More times than not, that's allowed. And that's really important to have your own inspector, because Lisa, you're right. I mean, a lot of these new construction you just don't know. I mean, they sub it out. You don't know the kind of work that's being done. And you need to know what you're getting into. And so it is really important for you to have your own inspection. And again, if you didn't have your own agent, that's not going to, you will have no idea. That will not even cross your mind, in all likelihood. And so you need an agent who's going to stand up, for you and make those changes, make those suggestions. So that's the first thing, is that I think getting your own inspector in there and not relying on the contractor, the builder to do their inspection is really important. The second thing is title insurance. So I know we touched on it in the past, going over the contract and everything, but title insurance is something that buyers purchase one time when they buy property. There's two types. There's owner's title insurance to protect the owner, and there's lender's title insurance to protect the lender. So owners buy it once when they buy property, and it protects the owner for life on that property. So even after they sell it, their policy is still valid forever for their lifetime. Lender's title insurance is valid for that specific loan. So, if you bought a house and you bought it with Bank of America, and then you go and refinance it with Bank of America, you're going to have two separate loan policies, lender's policies. You'll have to buy a loan policy every single time you get a new loan on the property, even if you use the same lender. So that's separate, but the owner's policy is what protects you as the owner. And it is not required. Lender's title insurance is required, because the lender's going to make sure their interests are protected. It's always paid by the buyer. And the owner's title insurance, even though it's optional, I always advise everyone to get it. And especially with new construction. And it's so funny how many times I've gotten comments, saying, oh, it's a new house. Why do I need title insurance?
Yeah.
Well,
Land's
been there for a long time around these parts, and it could have switched hands many, many times. So obviously that's the first reason. It's land. You're not, this isn't homeowner's insurance. This is title. This is the title of the property. Which is recorded in the land records. And so that's what you're protecting yourself against. We're not worried about the building. It's really the title of the property. So in general, you want to get it. It doesn't matter if it's new construction. But the other two reasons you really want to get it, one are mechanics liens. So, the way mechanics liens work in every state, I believe, but certainly South Carolina, is that the person filing the mechanics lien, the subcontractor, the contractor, the worker, has 60 days to file it past beyond the last day of the month of the work, of the month that the work was done. So let's say today's June 3rd. You're buying the house tomorrow. You close on your house tomorrow. I would have until end of August to file a mechanics lien. Well, you've been the owner for 2 months at that point. You would have no idea, and it would get attached to this property that I did the work on, and it would be your problem as the owner of the property to deal with that. And title insurance covers that and protect you against that. And the other third reason, is specifically for builders, is the type of title that's conveyed at closing. So I don't want to go too far into this. I feel like this could be its own webinar, but typically in the standard contract, title is conveyed by general warranty deed. And basically what that means is the sellers are telling you as the owner, as the buyer, that they're going to warrant the property, the title of the property. Again, we're not talking about construction or the actual building, but just the title of the property. They will warrant the title of the property through recorded history, that it's clear, it's clean, and they're giving you general warranty deed. That goes back through recorded history. So it goes from them and then beyond them as well. They're taking on that responsibility. For builder contracts, every single time, everyone I've ever seen, conveys only by limited or special warranty. And this means that they are giving a warranty only for the period of time that they own the property, which may only be a few months, right? That's it. They're not giving you any kind of warranty for anyone who owned the property before them, which really means in the two different scenarios, what that means is, let's say a title issue comes up and it's from a prior owner. In a general warranty deed scenario, you can go back and sue the person who sold you the house, who has a much closer nexus to you, right? They just sold it to you. You can sue them, and then they would need to, sue someone prior to them because they gave you a general warranty deed. For the builder deeds, you would have to go back and find the issue before they took ownership, which oftentimes is a lot harder because it's not a closer nexus. And the deal with title insurance is if you get title insurance, you don't deal with any of it. You don't sue anybody. You contact your title insurance company, they take care of it.
Yeah, and you're covered.
And you're covered and you don't have to worry about it. And so that's why title insurance is important. Really, it's for the legal fees, for covering you in the event that a title issue comes up and a lawsuit has to be filed. For special warranty deeds, it's a lot harder because you have to go back in the chain of title versus just suing the person who sold it to you.
And I've known people, it's not people that I represented, but I have known people in the past that have had mechanics liens come up on their house,
Mm-hmm.
months after they bought it. And it
Yeah.
went back to where builders and contractors didn't pay subcontractors.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
it has been a nightmare for them to try to get resolved because they did
Yeah.
not have title insurance.
It is. It really is. And it's just, you look at the cost of title insurance versus the cost of what it would take to clear something like that. And it's not comparable.
No.
So I think in that case, especially with builders, title insurance is important. It's the opposite of what a lot of people think. But especially with builders, title insurance is really, really important.
The only other thing I wanted to add about having representation on a new home construction site is, having an agent that is working for you to find out, what else is going in there. Some of these subdivisions, they come in, they have a bunch of different builders. They start out small, then they're going to expand. Or there may be at the back of that subdivision going to be a shopping center or commercial space or something like that. So you really want to find out what's going to be going on around that subdivision before you buy in there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And, again, you're not going to hear that from the builder. They're not going to tell you anything negative. They're not going to bring you anything negative or any drawbacks about this purchase. They're going to be all rainbows and unicorns. And it is so important. And I've seen it time and time again, that buyers get burned if they don't have an agent. I've seen it over and over and over again. And a lot of it really is because they don't understand the very beginning steps about what they're entering into a contract to purchase. They don't understand that, things can change and materials can change. A lot of times the contract will provide that the lot can change, the dimensions can change, without the buyer's consent. And they need to be aware of this. Buyers need to know with a builder contract what they're getting into. And a lot of buyers, once it's explained to them, they're okay with a lot of it, and they know what they're getting into now, and they're okay with it. But, a lot of them want to request changes and want things changed. And their agent's the one who does that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the person who's going to look out for you as the buyer. And they're the ones who are going to talk to salespeople. And so I can't stress it enough how important it is. You're driving around on Saturday, do not stop at those new build sales offices without
your agent.
Call your agent.
Schedule an appointment.
Yeah.
I tell you another thing I have done that works as well too. I've had clients call me and it's like, we were driving around, we really want to check out this subdivision, and I may be with another client or whatever. I have actually called the site, told the agent on duty, sent them an email and say, this is my client, they're coming in, and then I'll schedule another appointment to come back with them. And that normally works too. They put it down. They're pretty good about doing that. So that kind of helps on the upfront if they're riding around and really want to go right now. So something to keep in mind.
No, that's true. And then another thing I just wanted to let buyers know too, that maybe you've purchased before, non-new construction. A huge contract is that with non-new construction, at least in South Carolina, the financing contingency runs until closing. So you do have that safety net up until closing, which particularly in these times is very helpful for the buyer. The standard language in builder contracts is that it is a hard date before closing that it expires. And so that contingency with most standard builder contracts is that contingency is going to expire. And at that point, the buyer does not have a way out of the contract if the financing falls through.
Yeah, that's important.
So that's aware of, and something that you need to maybe speak with your agent about, see if you can extend that contingency to closing, which would protect the buyer a lot better. And the other thing that I want to point out that you mentioned is that a lot of times the builder will give concessions, closing cost credits for buyers who use their attorney and their lender. But something that buyers need to understand, and again, this is why I always like to look over the contract, because honestly, sometimes I'll look over the contract and I tell the buyer, yeah, this is a great concession. It's more of a discount than I can give. And with their other fees, it appears that you're going to get a better deal going with their people. So if you're okay with it, you've talked to their lender, I think it's okay. And so I do give honest advice when I look at those contracts. But a lot of times what happens is they give this huge concession. We'll give you $10,000 off if you use our people. And oftentimes their lender has a lot of hidden fees. So that's the one I would really, really check out, because a lot of times their lenders have very high origination costs or very high processing fees or underwriting fees that you wouldn't even find with other lenders. So that's the big thing to check with their lender, and try to get a loan estimate and find out what their fees are going to be. But the second thing is that a lot of times they'll offer this huge concession, like $10,000, and the buyer doesn't qualify for it because the lender's not going to allow a credit more than their closing costs. So if the closing costs are low, they're not getting anywhere close to a $10,000 credit. And that's, when they have to cut back, the seller credit's the first thing to go. And so a lot of times, it looks all, again, rainbows and unicorns up front, but when you get to the actual closing, you're not getting anywhere close to the credit that they said you were going to get. So again, I think that's something that you need to be aware of.
Yeah, usually it's just better off to get your own lender and your own closing attorney, I've found.
Yeah, and I do. And again, I'm always happy free of charge to look over a contract. And there have been times that I'll look at it and say, hey, this is a good deal. And I think that, and I do like to look at the contract along with like a closing estimate or something, so I can see what their costs will actually are estimated to be, to see how much of that credit they'll actually get. But sometimes I do say, yeah, this is a good deal, go for it. But above all else, have your own agent. I think that's the most important thing. And then on top of that, I think check with the lender, and then the closing attorney is also, they're all going to be on your side. Versus if you go with the builder, they kind of work for the builder. I mean, loosely speaking, they have joint ventures with the builder. So their interest at the end of the day is to keep the builder happy, because they're going to continue to work together. They will not work.
It's a volume deal, pretty much all the time. So I appreciate everything. And as always, anyone that has any questions, they can contact myself or Jennifer. Our contact information is always along with the video. And if you have other topics you want to hear about, and just basically what it comes down to in real estate, all in all, is always have your own representation. So thanks again, Jennifer.
Thanks, Lisa.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right.